battle of the sexes is as old as time. While the tug of war has certainly intensified over the past few decades with the rise of the feminist movement, in a non-political sense, the battle lines are really drawn from that age-old question: what do men and women want from each other? What makes a relationship tick, and how do you get past the torrid world of dating to form a relationship in the first place? And the big question is, do men and women nowadays want the same things from relationships that their grandparents wanted? And if they don't, well, how do men and women tolerate each other in modern marriages? Big questions indeed. And joining me tonight is someone who I'm sure can answer at least a few of those pressing queries. He is a dating coach, a cultural commentator, and a former star of the hit TV series Married at First Sight. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome to the show the fantastically frank Harrison Boon. Harrison, it is so fabulous to have you here. How are you this evening?
Daisy, thank you for having me, and that's probably the nicest intro I've ever received ever, so thank you very much.
No worries. I'm so pleased. I'm so fascinated to have this chat. So you were on MAFS. I don't want to focus too much on MAFS because I've actually never watched MAFS, so I don't know that much about it.
You're the only one.
Yeah, I know. I'm literally the only one going as a green. But you are a very traditionally masculine guy, and you were cast as the villain on your season of MAFS. I've interviewed another former MAFS star a couple of times, Dean Wells, who's another traditionally masculine guy, who was also cast as the villain in his season.
Yeah, we're seeing a pattern, aren't we?
I know. Does MAFS have a thing against traditionally masculine men?
They don't really change the formula too much. It's usually atypical alpha male, a bit scruffy, a bit of like sort of like ruggedly handsome, and with a strong personality. And then that person basically gets a bullseye painted on their back, and whoever attacks that guy the most wins over the crowd, wins over the popularity in the long run. So yeah, I mean, it's a pretty simple blueprint. I mean, if you're that guy, chances are you're going to be the bad guy for the season. And if you're anyone else on the show, it's pretty simple for you, right? It's just, okay, well, whatever he does, I'll criticize, and then by default, I'll be popular with the public. I mean, it's, yeah, the blueprint of the show, or the recipe for the show, hasn't changed in, what, 11 seasons, so...
Oh my gosh, it's been that long, wow. Yeah, it seems that way. I think it's a really good example of how culturally nowadays it's very, very easy to villainize masculine, heterosexual men. And it's a shame that MAFS kind of does that, because I think it devalues the whole show, really. It certainly doesn't make me interested in watching it. And speaking of MAFS, you've had a little bit of beef with some of your female co-stars recently, and this really relates to a lot of your commentary on dating and relationships and men and women. You did an Instagram live stream where you called them the unmarriables.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, it might sound harsh, but you did have your reasons. So tell us a bit about that situation.
Yeah, well, the unmarriables was basically a response to the last year and a half since the show ended, where the women that the guys were matched with are still single. They're still single. Sorry, my earpiece has fallen out. Sorry, I apologise.
No, that's okay.
We're having technical difficulties already.
No, that's all right. We'll take a pause and we can fix that for you. Not a problem.
Got it.
Got it?
So, yeah, the unmarriables was basically a response to the last year and a half in the media, where the women that the men were matched with, the women have just constantly dragged the men they were matched with. We're trash, we're for the bin, we're rubbish men. You know, the person I was matched with has even, you know, gone as far as to say she was abused and all this sort of stuff. And it's just like, well, if we were the issue, if the men were the issue, if we were the common factor that was the problem for why the relationships didn't work, why then, if I look at the outcomes of the men and the women from that season, why are the men in loving, committed relationships with women now, and the women that the men were matched with are all still single, unmarried, and childless a year and a half on? And these marriage, children, a family, and a committed relationship were the 3 factors that these women said they were looking for going on to the show. Right? So for me to criticise the fact that they haven't had those outcomes since leaving the show, it's basically going, well, why have you women, why have you group of women not gotten the results you said you wanted? And you're blamed the men for not getting those results, yet you still don't have them. And so my fire back in my style was to say, you're unmarriable. And since then, yeah, look, it was an insult, you know, I'll say that. And it was intended to be. It was a sharp jab.
Yeah.
But it was in response to lots of sharp jabs from their camp. And I said, well, you know what? I've had enough of being criticised by, you know, by you guys. It's time that I... It just seems to be that when they throw punches at us, you know, nothing really hits. But it seems to be that whenever I coin a term or throw something back, it seems to really land and offend them. And then they do this, like, then they sort of do this dance with the media, like they try and pretend like it didn't offend them, but, you know, all of the offended beforehand. You know, it's
certainly a double standard. There's a certain sort of cultural group of women that you're just not allowed to insult. But if they insult you, then
men just have to take it.
Then you just have to take it. And I cop it as a conservative woman. I had a bit of a biffo with Clementine Ford a number of years ago. She was saying really like disgusting personal things about me on Twitter, and I just kept ignoring her and ignoring her and ignoring her. Then one day I got sick of it, and I told her that she was fat. Not in those words, but that was the insinuation of the comment, because I was so mad, and I thought, I don't care if it's a sharp jab. You've been disgustingly personal about me. Cop this. And I was painted as like the worst person since Mussolini, and I'm like, what? Like there is a big double standard there with that group of women.
Well, I think you were kind. I've seen some of the tweets and some of the videos that Clementine Ford has put out, you know, kill all men. She made one post where she said, coronavirus isn't killing men fast enough. Now, I just find that super offensive. I mean, I get that she has a particular style and offensive dark humour is kind of her thing, and I get that. But, you know...
It's at the time it was in really poor taste, because I remember that when the numbers came out, it actually showed that the coronavirus was killing more men than women. So it could not have come as a worse time. And yes, sure, she has her kind of dark, offensive humour, and that's fine. But like, timing.
But like, so do I. And I think you were being polite calling Clementine Ford fat. I would have said something along the lines of, you know, I've seen more attractive burn victims.
Oh my gosh!
You know, there's a way to really, you know, get to her, I think, and it's using her dark comedy back on her is what they... The funny thing is they can throw it, but then they can't take it, you know what I mean?
And I think when you're in the public arena like that, like, you have to be able to take it. And I actually, I apologised to Clementine for that comment. I did that actually on live TV, and I meant it because that's not something I'd normally say, and I knew it actually did upset her. So I said, look, yeah, I'm sorry, but you were in the wrong, and I was retaliating. But, you know, but...
Clementine Ford doesn't have feelings. Don't worry about it.
Oh, no, she does. That's the thing. She maybe, in my opinion, might not want to admit to it.
I actually don't think that any of the modern... social media feminists, that's sort of the way I see them.
Yeah.
The Clementine Fords, the Abby Chatfields, I don't actually think they are offended. I think that they get... the group of people that follow them want to be offended. So what they do is they feign offence in order to keep their group... It's almost like political dog whistling. It's like they feign offence in order to rally the troops and have material for them to talk about, because without being offended, they don't actually have anything. They don't really stand for anything. Like in the context of Clementine Ford, she just wants to sell books. She's an author. So the more offended she can be, the more she can rally her troops, the more she's going to sell books. Abby Chatfield, she sells dildos. So the more she gets in front of the feminist crowd and, you know, gets attention for herself, the more dildos and butt plugs she's going to sell. It's just modern feminism is just a marketing scheme. And unfortunately, there's a lot of low IQ people out there that buy into it. They can't see the writing on the wall for themselves. And then you get people like us that come in. You know, I hope I can put you and I in a similar basket in some sense. You get people that come in and just say the truth, and it's so offensive. So many people these days, especially the feminist crowd, they're so used to being mollycoddled by each other in their echo chambers that the truth sounds like an insult to them now. And if you come out and just say, listen, you're a bunch of unmarriables, you know, the way you act is ridiculous. No high-value man is going to see value in this and want to marry you. They actually get offended by that, and it's just the truth.
I think you've actually made an excellent point, because often people will get very upset when you hold a mirror up to them. That's when they get the most, you know, offended and angry and get kind of hysterical. But I love that. Before we go to a break, I'll reiterate it again. Modern feminism is a marketing scheme. I think that's a quote we can all probably take right to the bank, so to speak. Very, very well said.